if you are joining us today, this series is intended to inspire creativity, celebrate real life creatives doing rad things in the world of modern composition, and hopefully bring to life the music that you play every day as a piano enthusiast. Today's guest is Brockchart, our very first guest on this Coffee with Creatives series. Hey, Brock.
Hi,
um,
Amy.
Hello. So, Brock is a music educator, a fellow music studio owner, and composer, as well as a jazz pianist. And I'll link up all of Brock's accolades in the video description below, and there are many. But I'll link those up in the video description below. So, Brock, to get us started with our first question, let's think way, way back, not too far back, to Brock as a youthful Brock learning the piano and practicing. How would you describe yourself as a student?
Ooh, uh, admittedly, not the best piano student. Not, yeah, I was not the best student. Way back when I had started about in first grade, when I was about six, and took lessons for a while, and it was great. I enjoyed it, and then there became a time where like I wanted to create. I was hearing, my dad was showing me some cool like classic rock stuff, and like I was getting into more music myself, and was really wanting to hear and play and to create that type of thing. But there was kind of a generational gap between my teacher and myself, and so I don't know. I was a stubborn teen, anyways, and so we butted heads quite often, and I actually moved more towards saxophone. I played the alto saxophone and fell in love with that for quite a while, and that was my main instrument, mostly because I could be in jazz band and I could improvise, and I found that to be really what I wanted, what I needed. And so I was a little frustrated with my own lessons until I found that opportunity to create. And then so saxophone was like my main thing for a while, and then my band director, like, he lost his pianist, and he knew that like I played at least enough to like read a little bit. So I will never forget, he told me that summer, like, you're gonna be the pianist. I was so mad at him, Amy. I was so mad. I was saxophone was my main thing, and like, oh my gosh. And but then I was forced into it, and I just loved it. And so I'm just and I never left, never really picked up the saxophone again, and just kind of stuck with jazz piano for a while, and found just that ability to create, and that freedom, and an expression that just it really resonated with me.
That's so fantastic. And what I love that it actually ties into what we were talking about before we joined in is that diverse sort of learner, right? Doesn't always make that kind of textbook student that's just doing the right next step. And so I love
Absolutely.
that really the creativity gives space, I think, to remember these students that are creating great, great things in the world of music. So I love that that was your experience, and that it kind of gave you a winding road into creating, which is really special. And that's neat that you have the saxophone background. I actually kind of feel like I hear that a little bit in kind of the riffs and the ideas that come through your piano pieces, because as a pianist, I kept playing these and thinking, these notes haven't belonged on the keyboard in some of the repertoire I learned, right? So
Yes,
I love that.
absolutely. Oh,
Neat. And so we already answered the follow-up question was just like how that version of you as a piano student brought you into composition and brought you into the composer you are today. So, and it sounds like you also had this desire for fresh things and new things. Is that kind of your experience?
yeah, for sure. I'm very, 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 right brained, and it was the sort of more structured, piano lessons and stuff. It did give me the tools. It gave me, I read, I can, I understand rhythms and things like that. So it definitely gave me, the backbone and the foundation of music education that, I really needed, whether I knew it at the time or not. I was, just a rebellious teen, I think. But yes, it's kind of just funny that I wasn't a fan of lessons early on, and then look at me now. I'm a piano teacher, and like it's all about piano education. So it's funny how things have a way of working themselves out and kind of that cycle.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think it's great for listeners out there that are going, well, maybe I don't learn stuff in the most linear way, but I love to explore creativity. And it just gives room for those students who are really wanting more out of their piano learning, but also that encouragement, like you say, some of the foundations were there, even though that was something that you resisted. And I too was not the technique kind of student. I didn't leap into composition, but I loved chord charts and just little bits
Yeah,
of improv along the way. So I
awesome.
love that it makes space for that. And I think if educators are listening and they too can think, how can I nurture those creatives? We want creatives like you, Brock, in our world. And so how can we nurture that as educators and keep that being a thing? And that was one of my reasons for doing this series was I saw creativity in my students and I thought, you know what? I want to find real life composers that they can look at and go, hey, the arts have never been easy. I know that.
Sure.
But they add value to our life. And so I hoped that for my students, if I became kind of an advocate and an enthusiast, that they'd start learning more about what composers like you are doing every day to bring music to our world. So I love that. Um, so then the next question I have for you, and again, it's we can kind of take detours here if we
Sure.
like. I just said, was there a pivotal moment in your musical development that sparked your foray or your adventures into the world of composition, or did it happen gradually that you started writing your own music?
Um, yeah. So it was really, I think, that first year that I was assigned to play jazz piano, and like I had told you, oh my gosh, Amy, when I had heard the news that I was being forced out of my instrument into jazz piano, I was so mad, so
Yeah.
mad. But then, oh my gosh, I just I can't thank him enough now for just really helping me find my love. But yeah, I would say that like it really showed me like opened my eyes to like, oh man, you mean that I can play any notes I want and it's gonna be great,
Yeah.
and so I would have that sort of thing at school in jazz band, but then I would go home and I was always a big fan of trying to do things that I heard by ear. Wasn't always successful, but I kept at it. I'm a strong believer that like ears are just any other muscle in our body. The more that we work at it, stronger they're going to be. And like early on, I wasn't listening to jazz super much. It was mostly like classic rock and stuff from my dad, and I would try to like replicate and try to do some of that stuff, and it turned out into a little bit of songwriting every once in a while. I was never a very good lyricist. I'm not a good singer, but I tried,
Yeah.
and so and I kept with it, and for it was really my creative outlet, for most of high school, and it just I really enjoyed it and always kept at it, I think. So yeah, I think going into jazz piano in high school, that would have been my first like walk in that direction.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there's so many gems in what you're saying today because I also heard that aspect of the hard work it takes over a long period of time and the freedom to explore. And that's one thing that was tricky for me, kind of being more that classical vein of piano that you're
Sure.
looking at the score, you're trying to create accuracy and sometimes it's hard to explore as well and think, oh,
Yeah.
I can play notes that might not be my favorite, but I'm exploring and I'm creating. And so that's been something for me as an adult to go, oh, it's okay if I actually play notes that I love, and then sometimes play notes that I'm just exploring and kind of getting messy like an art project, right? So
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a big fan of like just thinking about, improvisation or composition as exploring with sound. I never go into it with like a detailed map of like, a blueprint of, anything. It's too structured. I'm trying to explore the piano. The more and more that I can think as an improviser and a composer as just a kid having fun on a playground. I'm like, there's new things. Oh my gosh, the sand pit, and oh my god, there's the monkey bars, and like, I'm just like, I'm thinking about all the cool stuff that's happening, and I want to explore it. I want to experience it. The more and more that you can think kind of in that mindset, oh man, that is, I think, like the at least my favorite improvisers and favorite composers, that aren't afraid to fail, that aren't afraid to, see what this color is. Or, it's very similar to cooking. You might try a secret ingredient. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't, but you'll know the next time.
yeah, and maybe it leads to something else, right? In your
That's right.
as you find your way. Well, I think that's really going to resonate with our audience today. And I was thinking for any listeners that are listening in here on YouTube, what stage of music making are you guys in? Have you explored composition, or is this something fresh that you're just getting curious? I know that some of you have probably done loads of composition, but for some of you, it might be new. And you might think, hey, I get to be a kid at the playground trying new
Yeah.
notes and new sounds. And I love that. When I played through Brock's, we'll get back to this series again, his five finger jazz, and you've got five finger pop, and I think five finger rock, but I won't go too much diving down that trail yet. But one thing I noticed is I could see your playfulness in the types of styles you explored. So I saw, like, tastes of reggae and tastes of like jazz and blues and slow pieces and quick lively, like your Top Secret and stuff that's like a driving.
Yeah.
So I thought that it really actually proved your sense of like that kid playing in a playground was just you're exploring all the time. And I thought
Absolutely.
that gave great value to your books as well, because I feel like our students, it's so easy as an educator to teach music that we love. And so one of my big challenges this year, this big rabbit trail I've gone
Yeah.
down, is like immersing myself in all this different music and going, wow, what a gift to give students the chance to say, like, I love this. Like, I introduced a student of mine to one of your books, and he loved this gospel piece. And I thought, gospel hasn't been like, I've played church music, but
Sure.
here in, Vancouver Island, it doesn't sound gospel here. And that style just resonated with him and
Oh.
with me, and we thought this is a cool sound that I would have never have taught before. So I appreciate
That's super cool. That's super cool. Absolutely. I very much believe, every student is different, and it's we should meet them where they are and explore, the sounds that really interest them. The stuff that that I love might not resonate with a couple of my students, but I try to, meet them where they are. Ask them what sort of bands are they listening to. Is there any whatever film music or like movies or TV or anything that like really resonates in their mind. And like if they are into spy stuff, I'll show them like Midnight Spy or like Top Secret, and like we'll really try to cater to kids. And I really tried to have these books be as diverse as I possibly could. There's so many things under the umbrella of jazz. There's bossa nova, there's funk, there's samba, there's straight ahead swing, there's bop, there's fusion, there's jazz waltz, and a lot of the books out there that and they're awesome, but sometimes they stick with like jazz and blues and like a very like specific sort of thing. But oh man, I mean, jazz is just a celebration of so many different cultures and styles of music in different places in the world. And I really wanted to, have something that might appeal to anybody, whether, whatever culture, wherever they're at, whatever type of flavor, they're interested in, they can explore it. They have at least one piece in there, that might resonate with them.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that it's so true that unless you're exploring fresh repertoire, our ears don't even know if we like a sound, but sometimes something
Right.
just clicks. Like you're like, wow, this song was meant for me. And so I think that I just love that you're offering that to the world right now is this really diverse, beautiful collection. So I've really, really appreciated it. So before going on, I thought that we'd pause just to say this is so fun to have you as my very first Coffee with Creatives guest. I was just like, oh my goodness, I get to chat with Brock. They're from Kansas, right? So in the US, and that's so
Thank you.
fun.
Thank you so much.
And I thought I'd tell our audience too that even though you're so humble about what you've done, but composition's been your jam for the past while. You've got your degree, you've got your master's, I think, as well in composition. So this
That's
is
right. Yeah.
something you've invested a lot of time and care, and yet you've got this humility and this ability to just make people feel welcome in your playground, Brock's compositional playground, which I think is brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, and I love that one of your mantras that stood out on your website, and I'll point people in that direction of my-melodies.com. You can shop for Brock's music there as well, and I'll link that all up in the video description for later. Um, but what I also loved is you say good music doesn't have to be hard to play. And that really resonated with me because I think I got in that bit of a trap actually of thinking, oh my goodness, I've got my ARCT in piano. If I play something on the piano, it's got to be ARCT level. And
Yeah.
in the past years, I've realized, you know what? No, there's great sounding music that can fit into your fingers at any stage of musical development. That's really great to listen to. So I really appreciated that you brought that to light for me and just captured that thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. The whole thing with that, is so many of my students, listen to pop music and whatever is on the radio, and we would like Google like okay, Ed Sheeran, and like we'd see some piano arrangements and like, oh my gosh, they're like really tough, and there's some crazy rhythms, and hands are jumping around everywhere, and they're like, oh my gosh, is that a 3 second note? What is that? I've never seen that before in my life, and like pop music is incredibly complex, and especially in like rhythm stuff, and especially with more like spoken word type of lyrics, more like rapping and like hip hop sort of things. And so, but if you boil it down, it doesn't have to be as crazy as it looks on the page. And so my whole thing with like good music doesn't have to be hard to play. We can make stuff that sounds like the adult pieces, that like the real people do, the rock stars on stage, the stuff that we hear on the radio. But we can play. It's possible to play that sort of song at our level, and it's not like nobody wants to play Mary Had a Little Lamb. Everybody wants to play the big stuff right now. And so I try to make these pieces accessible to younger players, that they can get those those adult sounds, the stuff that they're used to hearing, but that like a 9-year-old can play like
Yeah.
well, and they can be proud of it.
Yeah, I love that so much, Brock. And one of the things too that it reminded me of is that it's so easy for students to come into music making, and because those big pieces are the goal, they kind of fast forward and they get going on a big piece, and then you probably see it too. Lots of injuries, tension, struggles, and
Yes.
lots of frustration because sometimes you can power through the first couple pages, but then suddenly you just get that drag of like, wow, this is too much to
Yeah.
chew. And so I love that you've brought pieces that really sound beautiful to the ears. They're edgy, there's lots of variety, and yet you're not rushing that technical development. And yet you have adventurous ideas in your pieces. I was playing through the books last night just to keep them fresh in my mind.
Sure.
And I thought, hey, like they're not just like in C position or G position. You kind of set the hands in different places, encourage some exploration of the keyboard, and yet keep it accessible. So, as a music educator, that's like the first thing I look at. Like, okay, how am I going to nurture this music if it's all over the
Yeah,
place? And I want, especially being an educator, that like that physical approach to the piano is really important to me to not create tension issue. I looked at your pieces
absolutely.
and said, hey, this is sound pedagogy. Like your approach is really sound, and I appreciate that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
That's
And yeah, yeah, I love exploring with different, the whole thing is five finger, jazz or pop or whatever. And absolutely, I'm just fascinated by how many different colors and how many different sounds that you can make if one hand is in, C position and the other one is in D position. And, everybody starts in the same. Everybody's doing C position stuff. Everybody switches to G position stuff. But in real life music, how many times is that really going to happen?
yeah,
Not much. And so it's nice, like the Faber, piano adventure stuff starts kids out pretty early on, like with, right hand's going to be in C position and left hand's going to be doing something else. And I like that approach. I grew up on the piano adventures as well. And it gets kids not thinking about like fingering as much, but like about reading the notes. And, ability wise, it's not as it's nothing different. Like, the notes are different, but like technically speaking, it's still a five finger piece. We're just, this one's on G, this one's on F. And you get compositionally so many different interesting colors that way. And that's what I love. And just telling students it's okay to be in different positions. It's what you're going to see in the real world. And like, oh man, look at all the different sounds and the different colors and stuff. And it's just as easy to play as if we were in C position. We're just a
yeah.
little outside.
Oh goodness. I can't even be more enthusiastic about this. I really love that concept, and especially as someone, I mean, I've always loved kind of those jazzy sounds and colors, but I was, brought up more vanilla,
Yeah,
so it's great for me, and it's something
absolutely.
that resonates with me. I really appreciate it. So I thought an audience question here. I was just curious for you out in YouTube land. Have you heard of Brock's Five Finger series yet? I've got the print copies. I think Brock was. Is it true that I was maybe the first purchaser of?
You were, Amy. You were the first person. I know. I know.
So I'm a huge fan from the beginning. I
Yes.
saw them and it resonated with me. So I'd love to hear from our audience. If you've heard of these pieces, again, you can check them out after the video and listening to all Brock's gems of wisdom today. And you might have seen, some of you who've listened to my channel from the beginning, you might have remembered Bad Apple or Bittersweet from my channel too, that I really loved. And when I was playing through the other day, I thought, I don't have enough years in my life to play all this good music and present it. So you can also check out Brock's YouTube channel as My Dash Melodies. And I love that you've got some incredible tutorials on there. You've got playthroughs that have lit up keys, but also the hands and the scrolling music. So you have a wealth of information for teachers and students looking to explore this. I also want to say these books aren't just for youthful pianists. I know there's huge numbers of adults who are going, I just want to play the piano. I want to play great music. And some of our adult learners are ambitious and they want to do those crazy hard pieces before they're
Yeah.
ready. I'm talking to you if you're a listener here. So
Yep.
this gives you an opportunity to play music that really resonates with you. And now you've actually met Brock here online. So that is also really special about playing music from composers that you kind of have heard from. You know a bit of their story. And I mean, Brock has a dog named Winnebago, which made it like I really had to talk to
Yeah.
you live when I found, the poor other dog. Not but yes,
Yep. Yep.
Winnebago has a really epic name.
She does. She does.
That's cool. So then question three, we talked a little bit about what inspired your five finger books already because you were just seeing that need for accessible things that sounded great to the ears and fit
Yeah.
on their fingers. But do you have any like sneak peek of what might be coming up in this series or anything you're working on now?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's hear.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, I have a couple things to share. And yeah, kind of on that like five finger topic, I've found, believe it or not, that I think I'm a much better writer if I'm given rules and kind of like put in a box almost, because it makes me think, how can I twist these rules to still be, in the set of rules that will work, but making, the sounds and the things that, me as, an adult still like, and still really, still really resonate with me. How can I make a song that, a 9-year-old can play well, but still resonates, with me? That's a tough order. But I really do think kind of putting a box or like rules on my compositions to start out with, it helps me be a better writer. Um, Lately, I've been really into Jack White and like the White Stripes, and he did Seven Nation Army and stuff like that. And kind of an interesting thing, he was an upholsterer for many years before he was, just a world famous rock star. And I read an interview with him the other day that was saying, when he was an intern, he was looking at a chair or at like a table or something like that, and it had like 3 legs. And he thought to himself, that is the minimum number of legs that piece of furniture needs to stand. It wouldn't be able to do it with 2. And 4, it could do it, but it would maybe be too much. That idea of just like minimalism and cutting back, like, what do you need, what's important, everything else is just filler, we probably don't need it. That's what I love about these kids pieces, is it's like it breaks down, here's what's important, and like, we got to make that song great. It's I don't know, I think if I was just given like a blank canvas and all the time and all the money in the world, it probably wouldn't be that good. I like being in a box, and it helps me try to think outside, and try to think a lot more creatively.
Yeah, I love that. And I noticed that even though you speak in, I had that sneak peek of one of your presentations, that there are no rules. I love that you put that out there, but then we also go, like you say, but having some like creativity prompts as far as like, am I creating this music for, like, what is it for? Who is it for? What keys fascinate me, or what kind of mood or rhythms do I want to do? So that
Yep.
is something that, even though you've got like no rules as such, you get to be playful, but like you say, it really can help laser focus your creative mind, which I know can be hard to harness at times when you're kind of this creative.
Yeah,
The productivity side of composition, it sounds like for you, you need to set some parameters. Is that on
for
track?
sure. Absolutely, absolutely. And like with these books, like I have to think, like, what is the average hand span of like, an 8-year-old or like a 10-year-old, and like, that five finger thing is great. I can't put like, I don't know, stuff like Rachmaninoff. Like, I can't hit some of those intervals. Like, who's gonna do that? Certainly not an 8-year-old. And so, I have to think about like, okay, what can their little hands do? Okay, well, they're not as, they're early pianists, and so we can't have like crazy, jumping all over the place. And, myself included, I freak out whenever I see 16th notes. Still to this day, I freak out when I see 16th notes. So, like, okay, how can I make interesting rhythms with quarter notes and not very much like, crazy hand independent sort of stuff? And I try to again, back to kind of Jack White, like, what does this song need? What is the bare minimum that this song needs to work and to groove well and for kids to like it? And so I like that kind of minimalist approach. And yeah, let me screen share. I actually just
Yeah, let's
got
do
this,
it.
like, is that okay? Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
This is, yeah, you guys are like some of the very first to see this. My cartoonist, his name is Francois. He's actually from Canada, Amy. He's
Oh,
in
cool.
Montreal, and he's just a very, very talented comic book artist, and he's helped me out on all of this stuff. It's just brilliant.
Oh,
But yeah, he just sent me this like 2 days ago, and I'm very, very excited about this. Is the first cover of Five Finger Rock, hopefully coming out in, I don't know, maybe September or so later this fall. And there will be a book too, but I don't have a color printout of that quite yet. But yeah, I'm super excited about it.
oh, that's so fun to get to see it first. That cover is again amazing,
Yeah.
and I love that it just suits the other covers that are just so creative. So that's a great shout out to the artist there. And I love that it takes a team, doesn't it, to do this stuff. It
Oh,
takes like your personal village to give you time and space to be creative. It takes, those who are
absolutely.
promoting music, and then the people that you find in your corner. And
Yes.
before we move on, I just want to mention that these pieces have the most unique backing tracks of anything I've ever heard. These aren't canned.
Thank
So tell
you.
us a little bit about how you got these backing tracks for this.
Yes. So I really wanted to do it right, and even from like the jazz stuff, I was just gonna do it. I was gonna do it the best that I possibly could, and I wanted the books to look like a comic book. I'm such a huge comic book nerd. I've seen every single Marvel movie, all of that type of stuff, and it's just and kids love it, right? And I love it too, and so I remember like in the book fair, in school, just walking around and like I would pick out the coolest looking cover, right? And so I'm wanting kids to be super excited about like when their piano teacher takes out like one of our books, like, oh my gosh, I've never seen a book like that. That's awesome. Looks like a comic book. And yes, with the sounds, it's so important, I think, to have a real drummer and a real bass player, especially in like jazz music and things like that. Gosh, it's just, you can't get that from like a MIDI play along. It's just technically right, but the feel isn't there. And so, yeah, I'm very, very proud. They're all friends of mine. They're Kansas City studio musicians that we all recorded these, and then they were mixed professionally as well by an audio engineer. And we have bunches of accessibility stuff too. We have 4 different versions of every single play along.
Oh,
Um, the first one is the what we call an ensemble accompaniment. That's the full band, piano, bass, drums, guitar, everybody playing at the same time. It's great for reference recordings. It's great for playing along with it without the pressure of being a soloist. And then there's a spotlight accompaniment, which is full band minus piano, so that you are the star, perfect for like recital settings or performance settings and stuff. And then we offer them also at like 80% speed and 60% speed, just for student accessibility. Just if somebody's learning a piece, and I always want my kids to play slower, but they never do. But if I send them the 60% recording, they
yeah.
gotta play slower. So that sort of stuff. And so yeah, I wanted these kids to just feel like a rock star and just have fun. The more and more that I can just get kids having fun at the piano and just go into the piano for their own enjoyment, not like, oh, my mom and dad made me practice again. The more and more that they can just like have fun and like, oh man, this is actually pretty cool. Like they're going to turn into better pianists. They're going to practice more. They're going to be better musicians, and they're going to just be more confident people. Like that's awesome. And so, yeah, having the play along tracks just makes it more fun and makes it more real, I think, for students.
Amazing. I agree. And one thing I noticed with teaching online and having resources like your backing tracks is we had our first live recital, and literally
Nice.
duet players showed up with only one rehearsal in person and played a duet on stage. And I felt like it was that chance to play along with duet tracks like what you're
Yeah,
doing and what others are kind of trying to create these opportunities. They were better prepared than recitals in the past because they were they,
absolutely.
they leveled it up. I couldn't believe it. They showed up like
Yeah.
pros. So I was so
Oh, that's so
impressed with
cool.
that. Yeah. So I just love the sound of those backing tracks. If anyone listens in, like listen to them. You can hear them a bit on your channel, I think, because you've got some of
Yes.
them with the backing track. And it's just so authentic. It feels like you're there, and it gives just such a novel experience. Like, when does someone ever get to play with the whole band and at that stage of musical development. And I think it just nurtures the listening ear too. So I think that that's, again, just really super special, Brock. You've done an incredible, it's an incredible body of work. And I
Thank
hope
you so
more
much.
people hear about it and are equally as excited. I know my excitement level is like right top. So if you can
Thank
match
you.
that, that's awesome.
Thank you so much, Amy.
So for today, as live streams are new to this channel, today our live stream didn't go as planned, but we're still here doing some fun things. We'll pop this video up and it will be there
Yeah.
for people that are curious. And thankfully, because we couldn't collect questions, I had also gathered questions from adult students actually that were
Perfect.
curious
Perfect.
about talking to a real life composer, which you are. And so today's question comes from someone named Tina from a really great group of 44,000 adult piano players. And again, we've talked a bit
Wow.
about accessible music for kids, but this series is wonderful for adults who want a mature sound but and can play along with the band, but also want to nurture really solid pedagogy approach to the piano and not getting those tension injuries that we're seeing happening in droves because people are pushing themselves hard. They're so
Yeah.
excited and driven, so this is a good option. So Tina was wondering, I'm a fast-paced talker here.
No
Tina
problem. No.
Tina's wondering if you write notes on paper as you go along, or does that part come afterwards for you? What's your process?
That is a really good question. Um, so there's a couple of things I want to hit at there. In my adult life, like when I'm doing like professional music or trying to do published stuff, for a long time, like years and years, I did it all by hand on music, like staff paper, and then I would later go to my computer and like have and put it into like a music engraving software like Finale or Dorco or Sibelius. Um, but I wanted to say that it can be really intimidating for people and students and just people that are interested in like I want to try out songwriting stuff to like look at a blank piece of staff paper and and just oh my gosh, or to like open like a lot of my students use MuseScore, and that's a great free resource for music engraving. But it's like oh my gosh, look at all these buttons. What do they do? I will tell you that in high school and even younger, when I tried to notate my own stuff, I didn't hardly put any actual notes on the staff, and like it was more just like I don't know, like F-A,
Yeah.
I don't know, B up here, it's a B flat because it's that high, and like these notes are like really close together, so that means I play them fast, and then we're gonna go down to a C, which is a little further away, like I don't know, E, F, and then like chord. And I would like this is like literally how I wrote, and
Cool.
for quite a long time, and this is fine. This is a form of transcription, the actual word transcription is to write. It doesn't mean that we have to like notate it, very meticulously, and it's got to be peer reviewed by that doesn't matter as long as it makes sense to you. That is all that matters. What I do nowadays is I use music engraving software called Dorco, and I love Dorco, and I'm gonna screen share my iPad here, and like this is incredible, and it is literally I this is all I bring to the piano now. It's just I don't even bring a pencil and paper. This is like a sneak peek of like a tune that will be in Five Finger Rock Book One,
Cool.
but I can do everything that I need to just immediately from the iPad, and it like all of this stuff I just did with my fingers in there, and I will say it's great for students. It is a free software, and it's really really good for iPad. And you can use this for all sorts of stuff. One of my students is young, and he's a very, very talented creative, but he has trouble reading music. But it's what's amazing is if he reads his own music, he pays so much, like just focuses really hard on it and does a great job like learning. You know, whatever for students to create, and it
Oh, wow,
looks like
that's
printed
so
music. And then and then they like and then you can put their names up there in the top, and like, oh my gosh, they smiles and everything. But
fun.
this is a super cool software. It's free. It's called Dorco, and for the iPad. And this is mostly what I use nowadays. I just take this to the piano, and saves me that extra step.
Yeah. Amazing. I think what you just touched on too is removing barriers. And so I love that when you introed that, you're saying, hey, if your means of communicating what you're creating is an audio recording, or if you're scratching it on a
Yeah.
notepad in a code that you understand to kind of preserve your thoughts, then that is communicating. And I love that as a
Yes.
music educator, that's been a theme for me because people come at music making with lots of different backgrounds, with lots of different learning um, abilities and capabilities. And you also touched on the fact that sometimes our creative students, these wild creatives, are not necessarily the in the box learners that have all their
Right.
theory checked off and can navigate. Like with my students this year, when we did composition, I actually notated for them on Muse Score, and we did it together. So they'd come up
Yeah.
with ideas and I'd start notating. But that program is known. It's not easy to get
Yeah.
everything coordinated. So I'll link
For sure.
that program
Ooh,
up in the comments
can I
too.
show you? Can I show you one more program,
Let's
kind
do
of
it.
on a similar thing? The same student that I was talking about actually showed me this software that I'm gonna show you, and he is, oh my gosh, Amy, he can do loops and circles around anything I can do, and he's like
Cool.
10. And he's just so creative, and he showed me this program called My Singing Monsters, and I absolutely love this app. And let me try to open it up here. It's the coolest thing I've like ever seen, and it's basically GarageBand.
Yeah,
If you're familiar with GarageBand, but like in a way that kids and myself can understand.
me too.
And so
I'm thrilled.
yeah. And so, there's like the staff here and stuff. But, I click on this monster's face, and there's like, I don't know, probably like, I don't know, 50 different monsters, and they all like look pretty fun and have fun names. And these are basically different instruments, right? Each monster has like a different sound. Some of them are goofy, some of them are, sound like a piano. And, so we'll just select him, and, kids will just start, putting stuff on here. And I don't try to give them a direction and say like, well, you can only do like C, D, E, and F and G. No, I just want them to like have fun and like explore, and like they can mix and match different monsters. Some of them have long notes, and like it's very similar to like GarageBand, but they're composing, they're having
Mhm.
fun exploring with music, and like it's very fun to watch, and they can listen to it. And so it's just a really cool software. And oh my gosh, I mean, that like 10-year-old that I teach, oh
Yeah.
man, I mean, he can make some of those monsters. Like I would listen to that on the radio. Like you can really do a bunch of cool stuff with it, if you put in the time. But
That's
My
that's
Singing Monsters, yeah.
okay, my singing monsters. I'll link that stuff up when I do the video. So, because I know that educators and adults too, you might be an adult
Yes.
piano player going, you know what, I want to explore composition, but I'm kind of nervous. So just start creating, right? And I think
Yes.
our discussion
Just have
today,
fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
is to let go. And that kind of goes in for the mental health and the self-care form of music making for any age, is again removing barriers, supporting learners where they're at, whether they're young people or adults, and giving a sense of playfulness to how we approach music making. So I think that you're a great leader in that, Brock, and I really appreciate that perspective. So I think that gives us some great new tools. Now, before
Yeah.
we end, I'd love to just let's get kind of playful with some exploring composition like you would teach a student. And
Sure.
that's a risk here for me because I don't feel like I'm a composer myself. I like to improvise, but you show me
Yeah.
how we could, make some music together today as we wrap up. And if other people are watching, they can tune in and try it for yourselves from home as well. So let's just dive in with some musical ideas to wrap up our time together.
Cool. Perfect. Perfect. So I like to start with like kind of, I don't know, bigger ideas sometimes. And so like what type of piece do you feel like making today, Amy? Yeah, happy piece, sad piece, fast piece, slow
Oh,
piece.
how about something groovy, like something, yeah,
Okay. I
groovy.
like it. Something cool, like danceable. I like it. I like it. So let's kind of explore here. And I've got a keyboard cam as well. I want us to let's keep in kind of the five finger sort of groove here. And so I want you to pick any like two notes that, maybe like a fifth or something kind of like that. Any two that you like.
Okay, well let's how about well, learners at home might like just something like, well, no, I'm going to go black. I'm going to go E flat major.
Okay. Okay, perfect, perfect. And so I want your right hand to let's maybe I want you to explore with like a cool rhythm with just those two. They could be at the same time. I want you to what I call find the thread. So we have our two notes. We really like that sound, but I want us to dive deeper into that. Let's try to find a rhythm or like way that we can do those two notes that, really makes us want to, ooh, I want to hear more of that,
Okay.
and this is where like we think kind of outside of the box. Like we have these two notes, okay, but what can we do with those? We could play it at the same time. We could do low high, we could do high low, we could do them really fast, we could do, all sorts of stuff. So I want us to think kind of outside of the box here. What can we do? What do you think is fun about those two notes?
Neat. Okay, so I'm not sure if I can flip my camera, but I'll just do this.
That's okay. Yeah, yeah. Perfect. So it's kind of like a rhythmic sort of thing. I like it. It's danceable. Awesome. Awesome. So that's kind of like our it's propelling the composition, right? We've got our rhythm aspect. Now, the left hand, usually maybe we're making a pop song, maybe we're doing something else, but it kind of makes it I like to think that the bass gives context to whatever the right hand is doing.
Mhm.
So, and could you remind me one more time, Amy? What are your two right hand notes? I don't have my headphones
Oh
on my
yeah,
keyboard.
yeah. E flat and B flat. So we got.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So I want you to try something in your left hand. I want you to do maybe single notes in your left hand, and you can pick one of those two notes if you want to, or you can pick a completely different black key, whatever you want to do. And I want you to keep that rhythm thing going in that right hand. And I want you to just maybe experiment with like long notes in that left hand, just
Okay,
different
cool.
black keys. See
And
what that sounds like.
I'm gonna try to avoid the fact that I know some theory of what I would think would usually match. So I'm gonna stretch myself here, and I'm
Sure.
just gonna try some different ones. So maybe.
Don't be afraid to experiment. Yeah. I like it. Super cool. And then we have a groove going. Right? Now, let's say further in our composition, we like that. We've got, a great, intro, and then we've got oh yeah, I should probably let me switch over here to like a whiteboard. Usually what
Oh
I like
yeah.
to think of everybody loves stories, right? Everybody
Ah
loves,
yeah.
watching movies and TV shows and reading books and video games, and it all has stories. Everybody understands a story.
Cool.
And, generally most art forms take this sort of shape to where, we have an intro, and that's pretty relaxed. We're introducing the characters, we're introducing the story, and
Neat.
then we have some rising action here. And I have terrible handwriting, but hopefully
Okay.
you can kind of see what I mean, right? And we have more rising action, right? And then clear at the top here, this is like, oh man, like the the space battle with lasers and explosions. This is our climax here. And then we have some like falling action, and then the resolution. Um, you know, if I can spell today, resolution,
You
there we go.
got it.
So, let's try to I love what we have so far. So let's try to maybe fit it into something like this. How would you like to introduce this song?
Good question. Well, maybe we could kind of like dynamically quieter,
Yeah,
maybe some slower, just
I
like
like it.
it's fading in, maybe. I don't know. So we'll go like,
Perfect. Yeah, and I love what you're doing. You're only doing the right hand, which is good. Kind
mhm,
of like in poker, you don't want to show everything, right out of the gate, right? Stories are very much the same way. You don't want to tell, that, oh my gosh, Darth Vader is Luke's father, like right from the get go, right? You want to save that for when people are invested in the story. It's a
right.
surprise.
Yeah,
So, perfect. So I love starting with the right hand, and this is great. I think this is a form of writing compositions too. And so I'm literally just gonna, fill in like right hand, slow, you know, right hand only, slow. I didn't write any musical notation here, but we both know what we're talking about.
mhm.
So go ahead and try that, and then maybe our rising action will be like, enter left hand.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome. And we're getting a little bit louder. I like it. And we're exploring different places. This is awesome. This is awesome. Perfect.
So kind of like exploring some different
I
keys.
love it. I love it. Yes. Awesome. Awesome. And, let's, just for sake of, branching out and like, trying different things, we're all about exploring different things. What if we switched the roles? Your
Ooh,
right hand was doing kind of like the fifth sort of thing. What if your left hand, what if they swapped? What if
cool.
your right hand did, like longer notes, single notes, and your left hand did like the more rhythmic like fifth sort of thing? What would that sound like? They could be anywhere, any register on the piano, high, low, mixed, wherever, whatever you want to go. We're just kind of exploring together. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Or we're just trying stuff out.
Okay, so yeah, let's try it. So I'll do maybe or maybe here. Let's see.
Cool. Awesome. And we're able to get different sounds, but it's similar. We're still in that same story that we had spun at the beginning, right? But we're just changing, showing a different side of it. Your audience is going to hear that they're related.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't have to be exactly the same notes all the time, the exact same way. If they're similar, your audience is going to recognize that, regardless whether, they, have a doctorate in music or not. People are smart. Audiences are smarter than people give them credit for. And they're going to understand that similarity.
Mhm.
And, we're kind of being playful as composers. My favorite thing to do is to take an idea and to stretch it as far as I possibly can while the audience still knows what I'm doing. And
Mhm.
then kind of, showing different shapes. And so right there, we had done like, right hand is doing the fifths, left hand is doing, low notes. And then we swapped it,
Yeah.
and we could, swap, we can, go different places on the piano. There are so many different, avenues. And this is where, you're free to brainstorm, you're free to explore, and just find what works for you. And that's super cool.
I love
So
it.
the
And I think
climax,
oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah, go for it. Climax
And
here.
so, yeah, yeah. So the climax, this is like things are happening here. And so, yeah, tell me, let's kind of brainstorm here. Very big energy. What are some, I don't know, words or descriptor words that kind of come to mind for, high energy?
Ooh, dynamite explosion. We were talking about kind of like lasers. So
Yes.
that's in my
Yes.
mind. So like, or just like a quickening energy, like maybe there's some, you know, people running or something like
Yes, I love all of those words. Now, let's think of like how can we make that, you said dynamite and I love that word. Like what does dynamite sound like in music? Is it soft? Is it quiet as a mouse? Is it really loud and in your face? People running. Is that fast? Are they just in
that. Yeah.
slow-mo? What
Oh,
is they going on? And so, maybe like something really loud and
Mm.
fast, high energy sort of things. And so let's try that. You can keep with your right hand doing whichever way you want to go. I think that energy and feeling is more important than note choices here.
Cool.
That's it. That's it. Nice.
Hmm. And that's new for me to just kind of just play the notes. It's easier for me to think, okay, what key are we in, and get
Yeah.
kind of scientific, but I love that you're stretching me too. And so listeners at home too can go and get playful on the keys today. I chose this all black keys accidentally, but
Yeah. That's
probably
perfect. That's perfect. Yeah.
cool.
So, but that type of just like approach, I really like this kind of like, I don't know, this like whiteboard outline. One of my college professors had like something very, very similar. And that's how he wanted me to do my compositions. And this was like in graduate school, like in composition for graduate school, like he's asking me to do something very similar to this. I didn't write out a single like, staff or anything like that. I'm just writing out like descriptor words. And, music is an art form that takes place over time. And
Mhm.
so that's why I like the story approach, because we have to think, how can we keep our listener engaged over, whether it's 60 seconds, whether it's 2 minutes, whether it's, I don't know, Beethoven symphonies are like 45 minutes long, but
Exactly.
generally it has this sort of shape and we can plan. And even if, climax, I want something, huge and fast, and I don't have to know how to do this right now,
Mm.
that's fine. I can figure it out later. But at least I'll know what I'm looking for. And then when I'm improvising, could just kind of mess around on the piano, I'll know what I'm looking for rather than just kind of blindly going around. At least I have an idea like, ooh, that was cool. That was big and that was fast. That could work for the climax, and that's fine. There's plenty of times where I have no idea how I'm going to end it, but I know that, maybe I'll have it be, similar to the intro, but softer or something like that. And, there's plenty of times where I write the climax first, or even I'll write the ending first, and that's fine. It doesn't have to go in order. Whatever sound interests you, you need to follow that string, is kind of what I call it.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think right there you touched again on accessibility, because sometimes when you're creative, your brain might not be working in linear ways that you can just keep going in one structured direction. So I love
Yeah.
that this is also very inclusive to, like, hey, if you get a sudden idea that you're like, oh, okay, I want to work on this, dun, 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 dun,
Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
then you
That's
can
it.
kind of play around with it, and you're not stuck to like, oh, but I didn't write my opening yet, or I didn't. And yet
It's totally fine.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yet I love how you mapped it out, because then you don't get so distracted in the outer world of composition that you can't complete it, right?
Right, right. Yeah, I like that outline thing because it's like it is a very like big picture approach, and like you can start to kind of fill in the blanks and things like that. But I think you'll drive yourself crazy if you just tried to go like literally one note at a time from beginning to end. And you don't have to have everything pre-written out. I don't think that Beethoven rolled out of bed and got his morning coffee and then bam, what was that? And then he heard like every single note out of the Fifth Symphony in its entirety. I don't think if I were to ask him, what is the second clarinet doing in measure 74 on beat 3, I don't think he'd be able to tell me that. He hasn't figured it out yet. He might have heard ba da 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 da. That was his string, and he just kept pulling it, and then he heard but it's a process. Follow what sound interests you and follow it down the rabbit hole.
I love that. So I just find, like, how lucky am I that I just got a mini composition lesson from you today, and it was just fun to spark that, right? And I think if listeners are
Yeah.
listening in from even being a teacher, explore it yourself, and don't worry about the right notes, keep exploring sound. So I think we've had lots of amazing takeaways today with that. And I hope that our listeners, I know that our listeners today will also be encouraged in creativity, and meeting you, Brock, is just a tremendous honor. And I thought before we go, I wanted to highlight a few ways that people can support creatives, because we always think, well, okay, buy the music. And that's true. Buying music is really helpful. But I also want to talk about 5 ways that people can support creatives like you in cool ways. So, one way
Yeah,
is to check out their YouTube channels. A lot of you are growing audiences on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. It helps to have an engaged, awesome audience. And that's helpful for having watch time and sharing the news that way. The number 2 is definitely take a peek at the resources. And even if you don't purchase them now, they're in your mind and you might recommend them to students. The third way I thought is protecting the copyright by using music alongside their permissions to share. So if you have a studio license, then yes, share with your studio. If you have a one-on-one copyright license, I think that teachers especially, but adult learners and the kids too, but can become kind of the gatekeepers of what great things you're doing. And so that's been more and more prevalent, working alongside a very global digital sharing world
absolutely.
that we live in. So be a good gatekeeper and help like raise awareness of how much care and time the creatives pour into their music. Um, the fourth thing I thought of is just tell people about what you're doing. If you watch this video today and you're like, oh my goodness, like I met this composer called brockchart and he lives in Kansas and he's doing really cool things. And so tell other people about Brock and say, hey, like if you like jazz music or you like cool pop or rock that fits under your fingers, look this guy up. So I love that.
Absolutely.
And then the last way I thought that people can support creatives is by leaving a review. If you do buy music from them or you heard Brock today and you thought, this guy is awesome, then leave a review if you can find him on Facebook or on Instagram or on YouTube. That's another great way to support that's free and is really gives these creatives a real boost. And then the last one I thought of is like if you perform Brock's music, tag him in a performance of his music or jot him a message and say, hey, I loved playing your piece today. And I think that also gives that fire for composers that is like, oh, good, people are actually playing my music.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's really scary, like putting your, heart and soul and like, oh man, blood, sweat, and tears too, out there in the world, and then just hearing silence, So yes, don't be afraid to like, oh man, my kid just loves, Bad Apple or whatever, like that. It really does make our day. Like it seems like a small thing, but like, oh man, like myself and and any other composer, like it really just like brightens our day, and just like yes, like something that we did, it resonates with a student, or an adult, or whoever wants to play it. Like it means a lot to us, and yeah, don't be afraid to let us know. We appreciate it.
Oh, well, what a fantastic conversation today. You can't even imagine how fun this has been for me. I'm going to play around with those ideas that we did musically today.
Yeah,
And I know our audience will be thrilled to have had a lesson with you and just find out more about what it's like to be a creative. So thanks again, Brock. I really appreciate your time here today.
appreciate it.
Again, if you're a listener here today, thanks for being here. I hope you'll join us again for Coffee with Creatives. I had some of my coffee. It was cold because I'm such a chatter, but okay, we'll see you guys next time.